Naturally, a lot of people that watch my channels, they also like to travel. That's kind of a given. Or maybe they want to do more traveling in the future. Maybe they can't do it right now because they're too young or they're in college, but they know at some point they do want to travel. And I have been extremely fortunate to have traveled a lot. Actually, I feel like a lot of people my age are traveling, and I've discussed how I think that there's been a big boost of Americans that have begun to travel for the first time, especially internationally after COVID. I think, COVID and the lockdown for 2 years really pushed people to go out there a little bit more. And again, I've been extremely fortunate to have traveled to a lot of different places now. I got to spend a lot of time outside of the U.S., and it feels so good. I've already talked about the benefits to travel, and I don't even think I need to talk about that to you guys because you already know. There's probably so many things that you want to do. But this is a list of things that little small pieces of advice for when you do travel, because I've been to it's over 12 countries now, I believe, and different continents, not all in Europe, not all in North America or Europe. Hopefully I'll change that soon enough. But there's definitely some tips and tricks that I can share. And I think the biggest thing, and this is the main reason why I wanted to actually make this video, is you got to figure out what type of traveler you are. That is one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give you, because, and I'm not talking about discovering yourself when you're experiencing, whether it's a new country or a new province in your country or a new state, depending on, a new county. Traveling, obviously you can travel domestically from wherever you're from, but this still applies to all that. I think it's so important to figure out what you enjoy most about traveling, because everyone has something different that they like to do, that they like to discover, that they want to do, how they plan, how they figure out things while they're traveling. This is and it's unfortunate because it's one of those things that you can't really figure out until you do it. If you're very fortunate, then maybe you've gotten a little bit of traveling done as a kid, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot of self-discovery that you're really figuring out if you're just getting dragged for a summer vacation at the age of 12 years old, which is definitely possible. I don't think I was really, I think I did vacations to Texas and maybe Las Vegas when I was a kid, but you don't really learn much about yourself. It wasn't until I started traveling internationally where I really got to discover who I am as a tourist, my identity as a tourist. And a thing that I have to mention here is that it's going to change. If you've never traveled outside of your home country, I'm sure a lot of you watching this right now are in college. I feel like people that watch this are all college age or a little bit older, or maybe about to go to college. But it changes, So if you're about to go to college, going to college and traveling are two very drastically different things. But yeah, when you are experiencing a new place for the first time, it is going to kind of change. I think I noticed that initially when I started doing my own travels in my own personal life, I want to do a lot of the touristy things. And of course, I think that's probably how everyone's going to go, no matter where you are coming from, whether you're coming from the US, whether you're coming from parts of Asia, whether you're coming from, everyone's going to start off by wanting to do the touristy things. And maybe that's what you love to do. Maybe you'll stick with that. I know a lot of kind of older people in my life, maybe in their 50s and 60s, they love to just continue to stay on that path. I found myself doing the touristy things and then eventually wanting to veer off. Now, I'm weird. Obviously, you guys know that. I'm real weird. I found after I, went to London and went to Paris and went to Rome, the touristy things started getting a little bit dull. I started getting kind of sick of the tourist traps. And I think that experience can happen to a lot of people. You kind of have to do the touristy things to figure out, I don't like to do that. So that's what I figured out about myself, and you have to figure out that about yourself whenever you do go abroad and you figure that stuff out. Now, maybe, like I said, there's nothing wrong with liking to do the touristy things. Maybe you want to go to the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, and maybe you want to see the Great Wall of China and things like that. And I'm not going to say that I don't want to do those things, but those are sometimes less interesting to me. And I have to say, on the priority list of things that I want to do when it comes to traveling internationally, outside of California, outside of the U.S., yeah, they're lower on my priority list. I think I've talked about this before on this channel. Like, I'd rather experience the way other countries live. That's way cooler to me. That's part of the reason why I like to travel to Mexico so much, and why I don't necessarily want to go to like Cancun or Cabo or things like that. I'd much rather travel to other parts of Mexico or other parts of Madrid. Know what you like. Just know what you want to do. And again, you might have to travel a little bit before you figure out what you like. There's also different forms of travel. I just discovered about myself, and maybe this is one of those topics that evolves with you as you age. But I just realized about myself that I love I went on my first cruise this year, and I'm like, oh, I would love to do that. I would love to travel to Greece now and do a cruise in Greece and hit a bunch of those islands. My friends did that, and I'm like, that seems like the best way to experience certain countries. In fact, I mean, to me, it's like, well, if I'm going to go to Greece, an island, very island based, you can have a day where you hit, the mainland, but also Greece is like thousands of different islands. Like, that's the perfect combination to hit a cruise with. Maybe Italy as well. I mean, Italy's kind of a little bit more difficult, but the archipelago nations, I mean, the Philippines is probably a perfect example. Indonesia is probably a perfect example. Combining different methods of travel is something to think about, because there's plenty of different methods. Backpacking and doing a road trip, not just boom, going into one area. I also will throw out this, when it comes to visiting a city, I don't necessarily, I mean, I love taking the public transit, but also and I love taking subways, but you see a lot more if you're, well, either on foot, or if you find a bicycle or an e-scooter. I mean, I think those are the best ways to discover a city, because you can go fast and you have plenty of time to look around, and they're cheap. It's cheaper than renting kind of a car. So this is just like a long-winded rant of like figuring out what you got to do. Like, what do you like to do? What do you want to do? And the only way to do that is to continue to experience new places and see what you like and see. I mean, do you like to visit museums, for instance? I'm a museum guy personally. And actually, it's funny because I have a feeling a lot of you guys are museum people, because I always run into people that have watched my channel in European museums. It's very funny. I also like to experience the food. I do not want to go to a chain restaurant when I'm traveling. I always want to, try the local cuisine. I mean, I feel a little bit bad even when I hit like a popular chain. Like, maybe that chain might be native to the country itself, but even just a regular chain, I'm like, should we really be going here? Sometimes I accidentally find myself going to a chain, not realizing it's a chain. If it's like a local chain for only that city, okay, that's kind of fine. But yeah, I mean, do all that stuff. Write the things down that you like. Write the things down that you don't like, and then when you do your next trip, boom, keep that in mind and have that in the back of your mind when you're figuring out the itinerary. Okay, so that's like the biggest thing I wanted to talk about. The next thing, this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but and I know that not everyone has this luxury, but for me, pack less, man. Pack less. Don't fill your bag up with a bunch of things. I got to be honest, when I'm traveling with people, it's not with if you're a woman, you could bring as much stuff as you want. I get it. You want to have a bunch of what's that word? You want to have a big wardrobe to go out and do all this stuff. I get it's a little bit different of a situation, but when I'm with my homies, when I'm with my male homies, and when they bring like a big old carry-on bag for like a 3-day trip, I'm just like, bro, come on, stop. I hope none of them are watching this right now, but it's really, I'm like, damn, bro, like, what are you doing? This is 3. I mean, I will bring a literal duffel bag. And again, I don't mind being a caveman personally. And it's all situational, of course, but I don't mind being a caveman and bringing like a duffel bag for like a week. If it's 2 weeks, okay, I guess I'll bring a carry-on, but how much walking are we going to do, and how many other places are we going to hit? Now, I have to bring a big carry-on bag for me to do my work, and I think that's part of the reason why, if I know I'm going someplace and I know I don't have to work, then I'm going to bring the smallest amount of stuff possible. Like literally just a duffel bag. I won't even do a duffel bag and a backpack combination. I'm just like, boom, that's enough. I'll figure it out. And I got that advice from a lot of you guys giving me suggestions before I started traveling internationally, and a lot of people in my own personal life, like, just pack less, dude. Just pack less. Don't. It's really shoes. Like, shoes can really add up. Yeah, of course it depends on your activities. Sometimes you got to bring a bunch of stuff. If you're gonna go out to a bunch of different nightlife things, then you kind of need to dress a little bit more fancy. But luckily, as a Californian, we're already used to dressing like hobos. I don't really mind people judging me if I'm going to dress like a hobo in Paris, whatever. So doesn't really bother me as much. But yeah, just try to pack less if you can. And especially, again, if I'm going to go to a city and I know I'm going to stay there for 2 weeks and I don't have to work, I might try to risk doing one duffel bag, probably a backpack as well. But yeah, if it's a 2-week thing and I know I'm going to hit multiple spots, even just multiple cities in the same country, bringing that carry-on is I probably have to do it, but it is going to be annoying. It is so annoying. Another little key tip that I noticed with a lot of my friends is not remembering when checkout and checkout is, and coordinating that with your arrival at the airport or departure at the airport, and then also giving a little bit of time to, make sure that the taxi picks you up, or make sure that you give a little bit of in-between time with if you're lucky, you're flying into a place that has some sort of public transportation option out of the airport, a subway or a bus to take you to the, your stay, your location. But all this stuff matters. Like, I feel like I hear that way too often from my friends, like, oh, we're going to take this 6 a.m. flight. We're going to land at 8 a.m. in this location, and it's going to be all good. And then they don't realize check-in is at 3 p.m. That's going to be extremely annoying. But also, maybe that's how they like to travel. Maybe they don't mind traveling with a big old duffel bag. Not even a duffel bag. Maybe they don't mind dragging their big old luggage, their carry-on luggage, for possibly 7-8 hours. That's the good part about knowing how you like to travel. I know that I hate that stuff. I do not want to be awkwardly sitting there in a cafe for 8 hours with my my multiple luggages or whatever, and waiting for the thing, my Airbnb to check in or the hotel check in. Now, luckily, that's a good thing, is if you do want to do that, make sure it's not an Airbnb. There are some Airbnbs that give you an option to leave your luggage, but I do not. And then on the reverse end, checkouts, sometimes at certain places, it's as early as 10 a.m. And if you have an 8 p.m. flight, man, that's going to suck. That's that's a probably better example to talk about this scenario, because it's a lot harder to leave your luggage at an airport. Yeah, and I actually just recently watched like a TikTok that got like 1 million likes or something like that, where it's like, yeah, when your checkout's at 10 a.m., but your flight leaves at 8 p.m., and you're just sitting there all day waiting to do something. I mean, because that's valuable time. You might as well go. You don't know if you're ever going to go back to these spots, and a lot of people want to use that valuable time. So just kind of keeping those arrival days and departure days, scheduling them out in your head. Like, that's like a key, it's a basic thing to keep in mind, but a lot of people just forget that. And yes. Another thing that I like to do personally is, when it comes to packing, a whole other piece of advice, like, creating like a list, and being extremely diligent about that list. I actually keep a list on my phone of just like, so I don't have to continually do it. I just keep a list on my phone, like a note on my notes, of just like things that I always need. I always need a toothbrush. I always need my contact lenses, my contact solutions, a case, a toothpaste, like soap, like skincare, things like that. Like, there's just a permanent list that I always need. And actually, I'm like real crazy, because I just have all that stuff in my luggage ready to go at any moment. Like, that stuff just doesn't come out of it's all airplane size stuff too. And sometimes I have to double check and make sure I still have enough for the trip that I'm going to go on. But just having that, boom, all located, and that way it's like, that saves me a ton of time and a ton of stress, like packing, because it's like, oh, I already know I have all the things that I need crucially. So yeah, but making sure that like passports and really important other things that are in your life, that's at the top of the list, that maybe you can't necessarily just keep in your luggage all the time. That stuff is is really important. Double check, triple, quadruple check things that are, making sure that they're there. I mean, this is just like suggestion for, again, if you're going off to university or if you're going back home. I have to admit, I'm very proud. I mean, I don't know why I'm talking about this because I think I'm like trying to jinx. I just knocked on wood. I'm trying to jinx myself in the universe, but I feel like I'm really lucky that I have not made a massive mistake traveling yet. The biggest mistake that I've ever made is I was one time in a cafe in Switzerland and I dropped my wallet on the ground and I was sitting on like a bar stool and it was just sitting there for maybe like an hour or two and I had no idea. It was just on the ground for like an hour or two until I went to the bathroom, came back, and I saw it on the ground and I'm like, oh my God, because that was where my passport was located, my IDs, all of my credit cards. Side note, like maybe keep a card at home. And also what I do is I keep a USB back at home where I have all my crucial documents on. I don't know if that's ever going to save me, but I do have pictures of my passports, my IDs, my credit cards, just like on a USB drive at home that's separated from my electronic, my laptop or anything like that. And that way I always have that if I ever lose those physical copies. I think that would save me in a situation where I did lose some really important documentation. That's my own piece of advice, but I'm also extremely careful and like conservative, very risk averse to things like that. I think it's kind of fun though when you're traveling young and you do make a lot of those mistakes because I mean, running into like young travelers and they have no idea what they're doing. They're just kind of backpacking through Europe. Got to give them credit. I mean, that's one way to learn. You will definitely learn because you'll make so many mistakes. And when I started traveling, I was a little bit old, so I was like, I don't really want to make these types of mistakes if I don't think I need to. But I give a lot of people a lot of credit. There's probably some like hostel tips that I can give you, but hostels are so specific to, I think, Europe that I mean, I haven't personally stayed in like a hostel environment. If I do stay in a hostel, I do have my own room. I do like hostels, fun things, but I didn't want to dive too much into that sort of advice. This is the last two tips I would give is just like, if you can try, I mean, a lot of people do not have this luxury, but traveling in the summer, like keeping in mind, the good thing about traveling in summer is you need less clothes depending on where you're going, unless you're going to the southern hemisphere. But it's going to be expensive. It's going to be real expensive. So personally, my favorite time of year to travel is fall. I love traveling in fall because I'm not traveling in fall this year. But if you've been following me for a long time, I do always travel in fall because you get to avoid a lot of the traffic. Because even spring's pretty bad, and then winter you don't really want to go too much in winter. People do, and it's Christmassy time, but I don't like summer. I love fall. I feel like the prices are cheaper. You can get things for cheaper. Being frugal. I mean, I'm more of a frugal guy. Finally, just having like backup plans. I mean, this is me, but it's like always having backup plans for if something's not going to work out. Just kind of have like a backup hotel if you know that like, hey, I've got to walk into this first of all, never go somewhere where you don't have a stay in mind, because I did that once and it was the worst mistake of my life, and that's part of the reason why I take a lot of blame off. I don't like Rome very much in Italy because we went there without having a secured location in mind, and so we had to call a bunch of these places and they were all booked up and they didn't want to give us anything, so we had to like schedule we had to book this super sketchy room in Rome, and it had bed bugs, and that was the worst travel experience I've ever had in my life. So do not do that. I think I got a little bit too cocky with the way I would travel, because I would travel and book everything like 2 days in advance. I would stay, a lot of my travel is like I buy maybe a plane ticket to a place a couple weeks out, and then I would buy the stay, and I would stay for a week, and maybe a week into that trip. So like, let's say I arrive on a Tuesday, by Thursday or Friday, if I'm supposed to leave in 4 or 5 days, by Thursday or Friday, I'll make sure to buy the airplane ticket and buy my stay for the week for the next place. And that felt like a train, like a locomotive, like going forward and just like putting the tracks down, like while the train's like going. I was like, and I flew a little bit too close to the sun like Icarus, and I decided, well, what if I just didn't get the stay and I got the airplane and we just figured it out while we got there. To be fair, I only had, it doesn't matter the context behind that, but I got a little too cocky, and bam, that came to bite me because I had the worst experience ever. Anyways, have backup plans. Definitely have that backup plans. Take that however you want to take that. Anyways, hopefully that helps out. See ya.